I'm Mark.
I'm Casey.
And I'm Patrick.
And today we're going to talk a little bit about EV incentives and where we're at. But first, let's roll that title.
You're watching the Tesla Life Express!
Sorry about the video difficulties.
This, of course, is the Tesla Life Express extended version. So welcome all to the show, where you'll have to sit through a 3-minute outro as well. So just be prepared. Be prepared.
There's no outro.
We should work on that, man. We should have and that would be like, like extended version or something. And it's like a 3-minute outro. That would be great.
Director's cut.
Yeah. Director's cut.
Everybody's begging for it.
Exactly. They're all asking for it. Speaking of asking for it, the EV world has been, of course, been getting incentives across the world from many different countries over their inception, because of course you've got a new product, you've got a new technology, and sometimes it requires governments to step up to provide incentives to get people to buy in. Could be to help them with the cost of the purchase. It could be in the North American case where they actually set standards as to what the warranties were with this new technology. Mm-hmm. So people understood that they were covered, even though they were taking a leap of faith on batteries that had not been tested in the real world for 10 or 15 years. They were only going based on lab information and what the manufacturers believed would happen. So this is something that, of course, we've all been familiar with over our careers of owning EVs. And it just so happens that the incentives have continued to bump up. So we've gotten more and more financial incentives. Recently, with the IRA in the US, a number of incentives have now been attached to certain vehicles that qualify for the IRA. And you can get a $7,500 federal tax incentive that is now even applied at purchasing the vehicle. So you no longer have to fill out a form and wait for next tax year. You can now get that rate off of the purchase price of the vehicle at the dealership, which of course is another great thing to have for people that are getting involved with this.
The story towards the Cybertruck Foundation series is no longer subject to the luxury tax. Even though it doesn't get any cash back incentives, that luxury tax was quite stiff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's these incentives have been being added to. I know that, for example, where Patrick is in Oregon, also the state neighboring him to the north, Washington, they have a number of state incentives as well that are rolled into vehicles that can qualify. Even some of the electric companies out there, like PG&E, they offer different incentives for the charging infrastructure being installed at your house, $1,000 here or there. California offers the ability to get a state amount if you're under a certain economic payout, income level. So,
and Paul was telling us about the ones in Colorado.
Yes, I was going to mention that when we had Paul Guzik on the show, he was telling us about the great incentives that Colorado has.
And they've even added used EV options that are, again, part of the IRA as well. But Colorado has been someone that has forged first and many times with these different cash for clunkers. Another one that has been advertised in different states around the country, the U.S., Canada. Don't know anything about Mexico at this point, but certainly U.S. and Canada, a number of these different incentives are available. So this article, which of course we've linked to if you want to read on the details, but this article was indicating that as of this past month, the incentives are still ramping up. Like we are still getting maximum value out of these incentives to be applied to EVs, even though in many instances, new EVs have dipped a little bit in their pricing. So the price parity towards gas vehicles has started, and we're getting a lot more EVs that are dropping in price. Not dramatically. We're not talking $10,000 here, but we are talking $1,000 here, $1,000 there, $1,500 here. The price is moving down, and those savings, some of those savings, are being passed along to the consumer. So if you a purchase price that's dropping, you've got increased incentives that are available or being added to, then you as a consumer have different, you'd certainly have a number of different chances to add up these incentives and see if it makes sense for you to own an EV based on the these amounts that are being given to you for your federal or state that you reside in. So this is something that this many years into the EV revolution, I'm a little bit surprised. I thought that we would start to see the summit of this, and we would start to see a little bit less of incentives, because at this point, as we all know, EVs are really becoming a mainstay. You've got, certainly there are people that still need to be educated about what an EV is and what it can do for them, but there are many beyond the first adopters that have figured out that, hey, I drive X amount of miles to work. I commute this long, and I should be looking at an EV based on the amount of it costs me to fuel it with electricity over gasoline. Even just that simple statement, there's many of us that are outside of the first adopters that are figuring this out. And of course, a lot of that has to do with people like Patrick and Casey that are actually broadcasting how it has benefited them, what they find the solution is, how it helps them, how it doesn't help them, how to weigh whether or not it works for you or does not work for you. There are simple formulas now that people can just plug in and say, look, based on the mileage, based on where I live, based on the incentives, based on the cost, an EV is going to work for me, and I'm going to save X over a period of time. So that's it's kind of interesting. I thought we would be a little bit on the sunset of these incentives, but according to this article, we're still at a maximum amount and still climbing a little bit as of July of this year. So it is kind of interesting that we're still going up.
Yeah, but it's good to hear, because there's a contingent of folks out there that want to, one, kill all the incentives, and two, after that's done, somehow make the EV go away. I don't think that's going to be possible, the second part, but it's possible for them to make the incentives go away.
Yeah, I'd like to tell a story here. So, like Casey, you just mentioned, incentives can be very contentious. And sometimes, especially some conservative folks, say, oh, that's just a waste of government money. So I was having a conversation with a conservative friend, and that he said that he was like, my gas car isn't subsidized. Why should you get $7,500? And I was like, well, actually, over its lifespan, your car is subsidized $10,000 to $12,000. The actual price you pay at the fuel pump is not the actual price of that. There are a lot of government incentives that go to oil companies for their exploration and drilling and refining and other things, that they have a lock on that, and they have lobbyists that ensure that remains in place. And that's not even discussing the externalities of what comes out of your tailpipe and all the problems that causes, and all the cleanup that requires, and all the healthcare costs that causes. So just literal dollars.
Military goes out to protect.
Exactly. Yes. So I mean, there are knock-on effects that we could keep going down the list. And then he said, well, he pulls out his smartphone. He said, this isn't subsidized. This was a company that designed and built this. And I just had to laugh, because I'm like, okay, do you know who did the initial chip funding? That was DARPA. That came from the U.S. government. When you want to find out where you're at on a map or call an Uber or whatever, you're getting satellite signals. And guess what? Those are GPS. Those are military satellites that are doing that. Oh, and when you're getting data, that's coming from the infrastructure here, also funded, at least in part, so by subsidies. So you can't. There's nothing, no successful product of any sort that isn't supported by people who want to use it, the government that says, hey, yes, this is a good thing for our society, and business. So you need customers, you need business, you need government. You have to have all three. And right now, this is what incentives are. Once EVs get to a spot where they're 25% of the market, okay, the incentives should start going away. The momentum will take them from there, no problem. But anyway, just if someone starts saying, oh, those are crap, you're just taking taxpayer money, now you have some response to that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it is interesting that Norway, for example, that is selling a lot of EVs. At this point, I believe they hit an 80% marker for 2024 for the first 2 quarters, that they are at the point where they're starting to ease off the incentives. So they're starting to say, okay, you can't take the ferries for free anymore. There's no privileged parking. The fees for purchasing the vehicle are starting to ratchet up. Another example of that is here in Canada, Quebec. The province of Quebec is the #1 EV seller in all of Canada. And as of the end of this year, the incentives are going to be starting to be taken off of the provincial side of things. So they are going to start to see a reduction. And that's part of the reason that we're having such a boost in EV sales, is that people are trying to get in under the wire, because they know at the end of this year, 2024 is the last of the full incentives provincially available in the province of Quebec. So many people are racing to get across that finish line. So that, of course, is driving up sales and making Canada look like we're selling a lot of EVs, because they know that something's going to change. So they're trying to get there. So maybe this report, which showed July, is just the top of the scale, because we do have things like Norway, like Quebec, and there are others that are starting to look at, okay, how are we going to make this change? We obviously can't keep having incentives forever, but we want to, still encourage EV adoption, but yet we don't want to empty our bank accounts doing it. There's got to be some sort of medium. And of course, that is going to be the lessening of some of these incentives. So I think we might be at the summit at this point. And it will be interesting to see when some of these countries or jurisdictions start to change the game a little bit. We saw this in Georgia some time ago, where they had a great EV incentive, and then they turned it on its head and started to charge EV owners a couple $100 a year just for the privilege of owning an EV, because of course they weren't participating in the gas tax, even though very small amount of vehicles that are it's a drop in the bucket, really, compared to the number of EVs on the road compared to the gasoline vehicles. But yeah, that's another discussion.
Look how long Norway waited. Like next year is their ice ban, so you can't buy a new gas car in Norway next year.
Exactly.
So they waited pretty much till the line
right to the end.
Yeah, Mark, your comment about incentives, it reminds me of what we often say on this show. If you find the deal you like, get it. And that applies here to the incentives, because are they going to be better next year, next month? Probably not. And are they good right now? Absolutely are. It's the best they've been in 3 years. So this is the time. Don't hesitate.
Pull that trigger if you're able to, because as Patrick has mentioned, this may be the end of the line for we may see that we've peaked it and we've started to come down. So this is a PSA to those that are interested and have been looking for some time. This may be your time. So do your assessment and go with what you believe. With that, I think we will wrap on this particular topic. We want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. If you haven't already, please give us a thumbs up, press that subscribe button, help us out. And we will, Casey, what do we got coming? What's the next stuff happening?
So on Sunday, you've got me with youtube.com/Casey Green, chatting with Casey and friends. And then on Monday, you've got us with the Tesla Life Express again. And then come back here again on Wednesday for the Tesla Life live show, our regular show. And we look forward to seeing you there.
Perfect. Patrick, any shout outs?
As always, I'm with the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association. You can find us at oeva.org, and I blog occasionally at carswithquarters.net about my future free from fossil fuels. Right now, I have my 1-year review of the Model Y on there. It's been just over a year, and check that out.
All right.
Perfect. Will do. All right. We'll talk to you everyone later. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Tesla Life Express.
Pretend there's a 3-hour outro right here.